Hi, my name is Luna. For most of my life, I didn't know how to say those words without adding someone else's name after them. Hi, my name is Luna, Brandon's mom. Hi, my name is Luna, the live-in housekeeper. Hi, my name is Luna, the woman who puts everyone else first. But today, I say it with my own name and nothing else. And let me tell you how I got here. I was 28 when my husband died in a car crash. We were living in Minneapolis, barely making ends meet. And I was pregnant with Brandon at the time. Well, I thought I was. Turns out, the universe had other plans. I wasn't pregnant. But 2 months later, I walked into a local children's hospital to volunteer. And that's where I first saw him, Brandon. A tiny, pale baby hooked up to more machines than I could count. Abandoned by his birth parents at a gas station in Iowa. The nurses said he had chronic asthma, ADHD, and might never live a normal life. And yet, something about his eyes wouldn't let go of me. I adopted him that same year. From that day forward, my life was no longer about me. I gave up my second chance at love, turned down promotions that required travel, and took any job that kept me close to home. I was a nurse for a while, then a private home aide. Then, finally, I became a live-in housekeeper in Seattle for a wealthy woman named Margaret Whitmore. That's where I worked for the last 17 years, cleaning floors, cooking meals, managing medication schedules. Everything I earned went into Brandon, his medication, his therapy, his tuition, his wedding. I bought Brandon and his wife, Melissa, their first home. I helped them furnish it. Even paid off their credit cards when they overspent on their honeymoon in Maui. Melissa always came from a wealthier family. Her mom was a tenured professor at the University of Washington, and her dad was a senior administrator for the state. They never said it out loud, but I could see it in their eyes. I wasn't good enough. Brandon had married beneath them, but I didn't mind. I didn't care what they thought. I just wanted to be useful. I wanted to help. Until one day, everything changed. It was a Tuesday. I still remember because it was raining in Seattle, not unusual, but something about the cold that day felt heavier than usual. I'd just gotten back to Brandon's home. I stood in their living room and told them I wouldn't be working for Margaret Whitmore anymore. I was exhausted. After almost 2 decades of caring for someone else's household, I wanted to rest. Maybe finally be part of my own son's home again. But before I could finish explaining, Brandon's face darkened. "You quit," he said, his voice sharp. "You were making $0 a month. Mom, what are you planning to do now? Just sit around and freeload. That word cracked something in me. I had barely taken off my shoes. I still had the thank you card Margaret's daughter gave me in my coat pocket. And here I was, being called a burden. I didn't lash out. I didn't yell. Maybe because I'd seen this coming. Deep down, Melissa had always looked at me like I was a temporary inconvenience, something to tolerate. Her icy tone followed immediately. "We're planning on having a baby soon," she said, not looking up from her phone. "Recovery from childbirth requires professional support. Luna, I don't think you're trained for that." Then her mother, Susan, chimed in from the kitchen. "Taking care of an infant isn't just about changing diapers. You need training, experience, certifications. This isn't something a former maid can handle." They tag-teamed their condescension like they had rehearsed it. Still, I bit my tongue. I tried to stay gracious. "Well," I said softly, "if everything's already arranged, you won't interfere it." Just thought I could help. Susan didn't miss a beat. But if you really want to help, you should cover the cost of the baby nurse. I'll handle the hiring. Melissa added without hesitation. That's only fair. Since you decided to stop working, and Brandon, my son, the boy I sacrificed everything for nodded and said, Yeah. Mom, you really ought to keep working. Our expenses are about to double. That's when it hit me. I was never really welcome here. I was just the money, the safety net, the invisible scaffolding that held up their lives without ever being part of it. My face stiffened. My voice stayed calm. I'm 58 years old. I said, I think I've earned the right to retire. Melissa snorted. You don't even have a pension. She sneered. Retire with what it was, the way she said it, the way she laughed, as if the idea of me resting was absurd, that finally cracked me open. For decades, I had worked 3 jobs at a time. I had sold mid-jewelry, pawned my wedding ring, skipped meals, and lost sleep for this family, for this boy. And now, I was nothing more than a worn-out worker bee who had the nerve to stop buzzing. They didn't know about the inheritance. They didn't know what I was truly capable of. But they were about to find out. That night, I sat alone in a budget motel off I-5, with nothing but a half-empty vending machine soda and the clothes I managed to pack before Melissa slammed the door behind me. No one called. No one texted. Brandon didn't ask if I had somewhere to go. Melissa didn't even pretend to be concerned. For 30 years, I had given everything: my money, my time, my heart, and all it took was one lost paycheck for them to throw me out like expired milk. But here's the thing, when someone pushes you that far, something inside snaps. Or maybe wakes up. I'd been silent too long, swallowed too much. And now? The part of me that always whispered, don't cause trouble. Luna was gone. Because what no one knew, not Brandon, not Melissa, not even Susan, is that Margaret Whitmore, the woman I worked for all those years, didn't just see me as an employee. She saw me as family. Before she passed, she quietly arranged for me to receive $7, $8 million in cash, properties, and investments. No dramatic announcement. No strings attached. Just recognition. Recognition for the nights I slept on a cot outside her bedroom when she had night terrors. For the times I canceled holidays to be by her side in the hospital. For the devotion I gave her when her own relatives saw her as a burden I hadn't told anyone. Because for once, I wanted to be seen without a $sign stamped on my forehead. But now they had shown me who they truly were. The next morning, I booked a flight to Napa Valley. Not to rest, no. I was done resting. I was done being invisible. I checked into the Del Mar Estate Hotel. A place so quiet and luxurious, it felt like stepping into another universe. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Breakfasts brought to your door. People who actually smiled when they saw you. That same afternoon, I began touring luxury villas. I didn't want just any house. I wanted a home that whispered peace. A sanctuary? Something mine. Something no one could ever take away. The sales center was a vision-sleek architecture. Soft jazz playing. Complimentary espresso bar. A young woman named Jasmine greeted me kindly and started showing me floor plans. We were mid-conversation when a sharp, condescending voice rang out across the showroom. Do we just let anyone in these days? No screening. I turned. There she was. Chloe Miller, Melissa's cousin. A real estate agent who once bragged at Thanksgiving that she only deals with serious clients, people with money. She marched toward us, her heels clacking like gunshots on the marble floor. Luna, she said. voice dripping with mock surprise. What are you doing here? I smiled politely. House hunting. For yourself, she scoffed. That's adorable. You're a housekeeper. These properties start at $1. 2 million. Jasmine, visibly flustered, offered. She was pre-screened at the front. Chloe. Everything checks out. Chloe cut her off. Unless she won the lottery. This is a waste of everyone's time. People around us had started to listen. Eyes glanced over coffee cups. A few chuckled. One man actually whispered. That's the nanny Melissa was talking about. But I didn't flinch. Without a word, I reached into my purse and pulled out my iPad. I opened my banking app, turned the screen around, and showed them the live balance $8. 142 307 19 Gasps. Literal gasps. Someone at the espresso bar spilled their coffee. Chloe's face drained to chalk white. Wah. That's not real. She stammered. Anyone can Photoshop an app screen. Jasmine leaned in. Her voice small. It's real. Verified. I checked before the tour. I smiled and turned to Chloe. Now? Unless you have a villa in my price range you'd like to show me. I'll continue working with Jasmine. Alex, the floor manager, appeared out of nowhere. Miss Evans. We are so deeply sorry for this misunderstanding. Chloe, please step aside. Chloe tried to hold her ground. But Alex wasn't having it. This is not how we treat clients. One more outburst and you're off this team. I wasn't done yet. I turned to Jasmine. I like the Bella Vista model, the one with the wraparound porch and garden studio. Let's move forward with that. Full purchase. No mortgage. Jasmine's jaw dropped. You want to buy today? Why wait? Alex fumbled for words. Would you like to see any other models first? I shook my head. No, but I'll take 2. One to live in. One as an investment. Jasmine let out a tiny squeal. Yes. Ma'am, as we moved to the signing room, I could feel Chloe's eyes burning into my back like acid. She couldn't decide if she was more humiliated or furious. Either way, I didn't care. I was done asking for a seat at the table. I was building my own damn house. And this time, no one, not Brandon, not Melissa, not anyone was going to decide if I was useful enough to be in it. 2 weeks after closing on both homes, I was finally settling into my new reality. My mornings began with espresso on a sun-drenched patio, not scouring floorboards with a sponge. My evenings were filled with books, soft jazz, and the peaceful silence of no one needing anything from me. But peace has a way of inviting envy. One morning, a massive bouquet of roses showed up at the security gate of my neighborhood. No card, no sender name, just red petals and a strong scent of manipulation. The concierge called. Miss Evans. Someone dropped these off. Says it's from your son. I didn't even blink. I told them to leave it by the trash bins. Then I walked outside, snapped a photo of the crushed bouquet lying atop a garbage bag, and sent it to the concierge with a simple message. Please reject all future deliveries from this sender. And forward him this image. Let him understand what his affection is worth to me now. That might have ended it. But it didn't. Brandon escalated. A week later, I started noticing odd looks from my neighbors, tilted smiles, awkward glances. I brushed it off until Jasmine, my real estate agent, called with a voice full of concern. Luna, have you seen what Brandon's posting online? I hadn't. But I looked, and my stomach dropped. He'd started a live stream channel, My Mother, the millionaire who abandoned me. Every night, he sat in a dimly lit room and spoke into the camera like some tragic character from a B-grade drama. She left us when Melissa was pregnant. Didn't even help with the nursery. She chose money over family. I'm not even asking for cash, I just want her love. Cue the tears. Cue the pitiful piano music. Cue the flood of comments. People believed him. You deserve better. She's cold. Some mothers just don't care. He sold merch. He took donations. He even launched a GoFundMe with a photo of him and Melissa from 4 years ago at Thanksgiving when I paid for the entire dinner and cooked it myself. He was monetizing victimhood. And America eats that up. But I didn't panic. I planned. And 3 nights later, I launched my own stream. Channel named The Truth from Luna. The stream began with a bang, literally. I dropped $5. 0 in random giveaways within the first 5 minutes. The notification bar exploded. $500 to @bookwormamy, and $1,000 to @nashdad94, $250 to @single-mama. People came rushing in. Viewers jumped from 30 to 300 to 3,000, then 10. Ling. Then I typed in chat, "Hi, I'm the cold-hearted millionaire. Brandon keeps crying about. Let's talk." I stared straight into the camera. No scripts. No violin music. Just the truth. I told them everything. How I adopted Brandon when he was barely a year old, left in a blanket behind a gas station in Iowa. How I raised him alone after walking out on a marriage with a man who refused to raise another man's child. How I worked 3 jobs. Skipped meals. And took out loans to pay for his therapy, asthma treatments, and tuition. Then I showed receipts. Literal ones. Hospital bills. College tuition statements. A copy of the deed to the house I bought for him and Melissa. All in my name, transferred to theirs without repayment. You want to know why I cut him off? I asked. Because when I lost my job, the first thing he did was call me a parasite. When I came home to help with the baby, they told me I wasn't qualified to hold a child. The chat exploded. What, are you serious? She gave him everything. Then came the bombshell. I was never going to say this. I said, my voice quieter now. But maybe it's time the world knows. I pulled out an audio file recorded accidentally by the intercom system at the retirement home Brandon had contacted. It played loud and clear, Brandon's voice, saying, she's healthy for her age. She can cook, clean, help him bathe. And she won't complain. She needs the money. He was trying to place me as a live-in caregiver for a stranger. Someone in the chat typed, that's not a son. That's a scam artist. Then came another, you didn't abandon him. He used you until you broke. Still, a few skeptics lingered. One asked, why didn't you just tell him he was adopted? Maybe he's hurting. So I answered, because I didn't want him to feel less than. I didn't want him to think love had conditions. I believed stupidly. Maybe that if I loved him like he was mine, he'd believe it too. The silence in the chat was heavy. Then, you're not heartless. Luna, you're human. He's exploiting your love for views. Before I signed off, I smiled softly. I'm not here to win followers. I'm not selling mugs or t-shirts. I just want to set the record straight. You can believe what you want. But from this moment on, I won't stay silent while someone weaponizes my love against me. The camera faded to black. The next morning, Brandon's stream was flooded with angry comments. Viewers demanded explanations. He panicked. He lashed out. He claimed it was edited, taken out of context, twisted, But no one was listening anymore. The mask had cracked, and underneath it was a boy who had finally been told no for the first time in his life. In the days after my live stream, something shifted. Not just in me, but in the world around me. I wasn't just Luna, the woman who stood up for herself. I had become a story people couldn't look away from. The mother who fought back. They called me on blogs, podcasts, Twitter threads. Some people still questioned my decision to go public. Others said I was the voice of every mother who had ever been used, unappreciated, and discarded. But one thing was undeniable: Brandon's mask had fallen within 48 hours. His followers cut in half. The merch shop went offline. The GoFundMe page suspended. People weren't just unfollowing him, they were reporting him. Reddit threads popped up exposing old texts, past behavior, even screenshots of his private messages bragging about milking the sympathy game. His sponsors dropped him. His monetization privileges on streaming platforms gone. And then came the lawsuit. Me Lavier. A sharp woman named Diane, whom I met through the Whitmore estate, filed a formal defamation and harassment suit. We provided everything: chat logs, videos, audio recordings, and bank statements. Diane wasn't just fierce, she was surgical. She filed for damages to my reputation, emotional distress, injunctive relief to prevent further false content. And guess what? We won! Brandon was ordered to take down all defamatory content, post a formal public apology, pay legal fees and damages totaling $180. Ling. Of course. He didn't have the money. Melissa left him before the ink dried. She signed the divorce papers with no fight. Just a single sentence: I thought I married a man. I was wrong. I wasn't surprised. In fact, I felt nothing. For the first time in years, I felt clean. Like I'd stepped out of a life coated in oil and grief and finally washed it all off. Still, a part of me, some small maternal flicker, wondered if Brandon would show up, say something, apologize, even lie. But he didn't. He vanished. Months passed. I reclaimed the house I had once bought for him, legally reversed the deed with the help of Diane's team. The process took time. But the day I walked through the front door again, alone, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. The furniture was gone. The walls were bare. But it didn't matter. I wasn't coming back to reclaim a past. I was walking in to close a chapter. I sold the property the following month. Just as the market peaked, profitable, putic, and painless. With that, I left the city and moved to a quiet lake town in Oregon. Just me. A yellow lab named Maple, a French press, and an art easel I finally had time to use. I started teaching piano to local kids in the afternoons. Sometimes they'd ask about my past, and I'd just smile and say, I used to be someone's mom. But life has a cruel sense of irony. About a year after the lawsuit, I was sitting at a small cafe reading a novel when an old friend of mine, Janice, walked in. Luna, she said, rushing over with a grin. You will not believe what I saw online yesterday. I raised a brow. What now? She turned her phone to me. A blurry video. A street corner in Vancouver, Canada. A man hunched over a trash bin, unshaven, digging through discarded food. He looked thin, worn out. At first, I didn't recognize him. Until I saw the eyes. Brandon. Someone had filmed it and uploaded it with the title "Ex-influencer spotted homeless after lawsuit scandal." He was talking to himself, rocking slightly, smiling, then crying. His clothes were torn, his fingers shaking. He wasn't just broke, he was broken. And I didn't feel satisfied. I didn't feel vengeance. I felt a quiet emptiness. This wasn't a victory. This was what happens when a person builds a house out of lies and tries to live in it. Janice asked, "Are you okay?" I nodded slowly. I think I finally am. Later that night, I sat by the window of my cabin, holding a mug of chamomile tea. The trees rustled softly. Maple lay by my feet. And for the first time in decades, my phone was silent not from neglect, but by choice. I thought about the boy I once rescued from behind a gas station, about the woman I became while raising him, and about the version of me who thought love meant giving everything until there was nothing left. Would I do it again, maybe? But this time, I'd love without losing myself. This time, I'd remember kindness as a gift, not a currency. And those who treat it like a transaction, they don't deserve another dime. Hello again. My name is Luna. And this is the last chapter of the story I never thought I'd be brave enough to tell. I never planned to be known. I never wanted to be famous or infamous. Depending on who you ask, all I ever wanted was a quiet life where love wasn't measured in transactions. And peace didn't have to be earned by sacrifice. Now, sitting on my wraparound porch in Oregon, warm coffee in hand, and my dog Maple softly breathing beside me, I can finally say I got my wish. But the road here, it broke me in all the right ways. You see, after Brandon disappeared from the public eye and the noise died down, I started to feel something unfamiliar: stillness. The kind of stillness that isn't silence, but freedom. Not absence, but presence. I started gardening. Not in the Instagram way. Not rows of roses and curated photos. No hashtags. Just dirt under my nails and quiet afternoons planting things that could not lie or betray. Tomatoes. Basil. Lavender. Sunflowers. I found joy in watching things grow, not because I owned them, or raised them, or sacrificed for them, but simply because I tended to them. Because I showed up, watered, waited, and let nature do the rest. It made me think about motherhood, about how often we mistake love for control, how we measure our value by how much pain we endure for others, how we wear suffering like a badge, especially women, especially me. But here's what I've learned. Real love isn't about losing yourself to lift others. It's about lifting others while staying whole. I used to think being selfless was the highest compliment. Now I think it's dangerous. Because when you give and give and give, one day you wake up and there's nothing left of you but memory and fatigue. That was me. Not anymore. A few months ago, I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. It was from Melissa. She apologized not for the past, but for her silence. She wrote that she didn't know how to stand up to Brandon back then. That watching me walk away made her rethink everything. She told me she left him not because I ruined him, but because she realized he never wanted to grow. He just wanted to consume. She ended the letter like this: "You were the only real light in our home. Luna." I just couldn't see it through the shadows. I folded the letter carefully and tucked it between the pages of an old book I used to read to Brandon when he was little. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just forgave. Not because she earned it. Not because I wanted her back in my life. But because I needed to stop carrying her weight on my back. Forgiveness isn't letting someone off the hook. It's letting yourself off the hook for thinking their damage was your responsibility to heal. These days, people still ask me if I regret going public, if I regret airing my story, my pain, my wounds. I don't. Because for every troll that called me bitter, 10 women messaged me privately to say thank you. You gave me the courage to leave, to speak, to stop apologizing. I even received a letter from a woman in Detroit who'd been caring for her elderly mother and 3 grandchildren, while her own kids called her ungrateful and needy. She said, "Your story reminded me I'm not a servant. I'm a person. That's why I told it. Not for revenge, but for recognition, so others wouldn't feel as invisible as I once did." Last week, a young girl in town, maybe 19, asked if she could interview me for her journalism project. I laughed and said, "You really want to hear from an old lady who grows tomatoes?" She smiled and replied, "You're not old. You're legendary." I chuckled. Not because I believed her, but because a part of me finally understood. You don't need to be everything to be enough. You don't need to be famous to be free. You don't need to be loved by everyone to love yourself. I used to be the woman who cleaned around corners no one ever looked at, hoping someone would one day see me. Now I'm the woman who plants sunflowers where no one walks just because I do. I live in a little white house with blue shutters. I host soup nights for the neighbors. I teach piano to kids who call me Miss Luna. I dance in the kitchen with Maple when jazz comes on the radio. No one claps. No one records. No one applauds. And that, strangely, is what makes it all so beautiful. Because in the end, peace isn't loud. It's quiet. And earned. And absolutely worth it.